What's up, everybody? It's the Roundtable Sports Podcast. My name is Taylor McLean, and it's been another action-packed week in Week 7 of the NFL. It hurts me to think that football will be over at some point, but it still feels like we've got plenty of juice and plenty of action left, and I don't feel like my cup is even close to being full when it comes to this season. Got to the podcast a little later in the day than I like to, but I wanted to make sure that I had all my games that I wanted to talk about watched. And then, you know what? We got a little bonus in that James Robinson got traded to the New York Jets while I was sitting here getting ready. And I have already watched James Robinson played football this year, so I'm ready to react right off the cuff here. And let me say that I think this is a good trade for the New York Jets. It's a conditional sixth round pick, so maybe it ups itself to a fifth round pick if there are certain things that happen. There wasn't information on the conditions of the pick, but still late enough where I don't bat an eye on trying to get a replacement for Breece Hall in a season where you're trying to make some strides and you want to see what you've got as a team. Plus, it hasn't been every year that the New York Jets can boast a record like this going into week 8 of the season. So I got to think that you want to, put a little juice onto this season and you want to see how James Robinson fits for you as well. And with Breece Hall out, you need somebody to be that other running back with Michael Carter. And while James hasn't been 100% from his Achilles injury, he's nothing less than 90% from what it looks like to me while he's out there. I don't know that I see every bit of the burst, but there's enough with his strength and with that burst that he has been putting quality tape out on the field for a running back. And you have to think that the Jets have been able to look into that and feel like that's going to offer them something right next to Michael Carter to try and keep this season going for them. Because the loss of Breece Hall definitely hurts that explosive element that the Jets need from the running back position. I like Michael Carter a lot, and I think he'll be just fine in the absence of Breece Hall, but it's just not that same level of running back and same level of explosive play potential that Breece Hall offers you. I don't think James Robinson is even close to that level of explosive, but he definitely has enough and offers you far more than a replacement level running back that you would have come off your practice squad or come off of your third string style running back. He's going to offer you more than what they would be able to offer you. Like I said, it may not be 100% of where he was. He still needs to get another year away from that injury before he's probably turning it 100%. But James Robinson definitely still has something. The film bears it out. He's got good vision and good instincts as far as where to run with the ball when he gets it. And it's not going to hurt the Jaguars all that much because I really like Travis Etienne, and he's really been showing some bounce. And JaMycal Hasty has plenty in the tank for them as well. He had a nice touchdown in one of their games recently, and I think that probably helped them be able to make this decision because they're trying to develop Trevor, who's from the same draft class as Zach Wilson too. So you don't want to take away from anything that helps him going forward as well. But I feel like they probably felt like they have enough going forward at running back there. And you're going to have to pay James here pretty shortly. And with ETN in tow, I don't think that was something they were going to do anyway. And I don't think that James Robinson is super likely to sign a contract that is going to get you some sort of conditional round pick later on. Like, I don't see him getting above $5 million in free agency, even if he has a great run right here. So you're getting something for him for a guy you're not going to pay later on, and you're giving him an opportunity to get more film out there on a different team so he can go into free agency strong. You're probably about to give the reins over to ETN, who, like I said, has been showing a lot of burst. And even though he's had some really bad mistakes, I think those are mistakes you're going to live with when he's got that kind of action behind him. So good deal for all sides. James has a week to get into the playbook and get himself right. I got to think he'll be playing a change of pace type role for Michael Carter, but it's probably a pretty good toss up on who has more talent overall. That a toss up that Michael Carter probably wins by a nose with James Robinson coming off the injury. And maybe you give him the nod just a little bit because he's been in the system for longer. At least he will be for the first couple of weeks, you would think. But they made this trade for a reason, too, because they know that they're going to need two quality guys to make this happen. So good deal for both sides. I guess we'll see it next week when the Jets take on the Patriots, although it'll be a short week, and I'm betting his usage will be a lot like Christian McCaffrey's in kind of a shorter week where you're just now getting with the team. Although we're not talking about even close to the same amount of running back talent when it comes to Christian McCaffrey versus James Robinson. So not quite the same level of trade or trade compensation, since we're talking about an extra second, third, fourth, and then fifth that conditional pick could turn into for the James Robinson trade. The 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs was the first game that I watched right off the bat, and what I was going to lead with before we bursted off into James Robinson talk there. This was a fun game. I got to see a lot of it in the late window. They made it kind of the de facto national game. If you ever wondered why there's usually like one really good game and then a couple of spare games in the later window, they like to create a de facto national game that everybody besides the fans of the other two teams are watching. That's why you'll have that like one marquee matchup, and then you'll have two other ones. Not to take away from the two other ones this week, I enjoyed the Chargers and the Seahawks, as well as the Texans and the Raiders. All of those games have implications to me that I like to think about. And so I enjoyed having those games going on too. But Chiefs 49ers does take it to another level for most of your NFL fans. So that's why they had that de facto national game be right here. And I think it lived up to the hype. Granted, the Chiefs were able to pull away late, but that was mainly done late. Going into halftime and even going late into the third, this game was close, and you felt like the 49ers had a shot at any given time. Still, it felt like the Chiefs were in control of this game for the most part to me. I was especially encouraged with the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. I thought they did a great job, especially in the first half, even though the second half is when the big point swing came. The first half, they kept Patrick completely clean, and he was throwing with confidence throughout the game. He always throws with confidence, but you can see he had a lot of confidence in that pocket, and rightfully so. Bosa ended up getting a holding penalty and then ended up getting a sack later on, but without Armstead kind of balancing out that line fully healthy, it does take a little pop out of the 49ers pass rush, but still, it was impressive to see the Chiefs kind of gel as a unit a little bit overall and handle their business. If they're vulnerable anywhere, it's on the edges. And with Nick Bosa coming primarily from the right side, Andrew Wiley is certainly somebody that they're looking to target and that you would have thought might have had a little bit more trouble. But the Chiefs did a good job of giving him some help. And then he held up to his credit and drew the holding penalty and did give up the sack. But we're talking about a true game wrecking talent when it comes to Nick Bosa, and coming off the injury, sure, but they did a good job of getting the ball out of Patrick's hands, running the ball and being successful with that, which also goes to the offensive line, and being creative on how they deployed their skill position guys. It seems like Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling are settling into the offense. They're not a one-to-one replacement for Tyreek Hill by any means, but they definitely serve their roles and allow the Chiefs to have a little bit more playmaking on the field than they did last year. Not that either one of these guys are better playmakers than Tyreek by any means, and Tyreek's speed definitely means a ton to the offense when he can go up and get it at a special rate for a speed guy. I've wished for years for Mecole Hardman to be able to be a poor man's version of Tyreek, and he did a good job in his role as kind of the gadget play guy, getting the 2 rushing and the 1 receiving TD, which was huge for the offense, no doubt, but he's not the same at the point of contact when you have a contested catch. Like Tyreek is actually pretty elite at that part of his game, which is part of what makes him special. Still, having Mecole and then having Marquez Valdez-Scantling be able to take the top off the defense as well, and then adding Juju to the underneath and the seams on top of Travis Kelce, and it does create different problems for the defense, especially when teams have really been daring the Chiefs to work those parts of the field by playing their safeties back, giving the Chiefs the numbers to both run the ball and throw it short, and hoping that they A, don't have the patience to do so, or B, hopefully don't have the ability. Luckily, the Chiefs have been seeing this for some time and have gotten better at it. And this personnel, with everybody healthy and everybody moving in concert like they are now, could lead them to be more dangerous than they've been, even with Tyreek. Not to say that any of the guys by themselves are better, but I think they're coming into their own as far as deploying these guys and giving the defenses problems, because it was apparent today that while the 49ers had a lot of answers, they had trouble covering the field when the defense wasn't getting to Patrick. And then Patrick, of course, is a master of creating more times and creating unexpected passing lanes with his arm angles that can give a defense fit. And it made a huge difference today versus a defense that I think we all respect. It's just that offensive line kind of finally played up to my expectations now. And when you give Patrick time to be able to confidently move the ball down the field, he's going to be able to hurt you. And these weapons and their connection with Patrick can continue to mature. I think that makes them tougher and tougher to beat as we go down the line, because I also believe that this team has a pretty solid pass rush to go with Patrick Mahomes and the offense as well. Pass rush definitely gave Jimmy G and the San Francisco 49ers fits. And while they were able to run the ball at times and were able to stretch the Chiefs out horizontally, when it came time to move the ball down the field a bit, or Jimmy G took extra time to try and create a play, those plays weren't there, and the Chiefs were able to penetrate and get Jimmy G off his mark, or safety him for that matter. And that was the big difference. And that's going to be the big difference anytime that the 49ers have to have Jimmy G win them a game, because he's not the type of guy that makes quick enough decisions, and then he doesn't move well enough within the pocket to be able to create extra time. Most of the time he's about 10 times more stationary than Patrick ever thinks about being. And when you're not one of those super accurate Drew Brees type guys that's getting the ball out and hitting guys in stride, then you're going to have problems when the other team is able to make you win the game, because San Francisco is so good with their skill position people that most of the time it doesn't come to that. Most of the time, Jimmy G is just able to distribute the ball where it needs to be on time, and not even that far down the field, and then let his guys, Debo, Eli Mitchell, now it's Christian McCaffrey, Jeff, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, you let these guys run with the ball and use their extraordinary abilities with the ball to further the offense and to make big plays, rather than you having to make them down the field yourself. It's not that he's not capable, he's just super inconsistent. And then you throw in that his reads just aren't quite fast enough. If the play doesn't go kind of to design, then that can be trouble, and that's when the sacks come. And you saw it with the Cowboys last year. The Cowboys never forced him to have to do these things that the Chiefs were able to force him to do. And that was only because, and Kansas City was only able to do it when they answered a touchdown late and then got the safety. By that time, having to come back 2 scores is hard enough, but you have plenty of time if you're able to throw your team back into the game. 49ers don't have that ability. Cowboys were never able to get them there last year. 49ers the year before that. And the Rams just barely got them there. So it takes a really good team and it takes a lot of offense to get there. And while it didn't work out perfect today, I think Christian McCaffrey only furthers that for the 49ers. He gives them another very explosive playmaker to add to the mix, even though I really like Jeff Wilson a lot. And I think Jeff has plenty to add as a second running back. I think he'd be one of the best second running backs, and he has been, but he had to step up into the main role with Eli Mitchell out. Having all three of them and even having two of them on the field at a given time is going to make the 49ers more dangerous and allow them to do other things with the rest of their weapons. And I think that their weapons are really dangerous, and it kept them in this game for a good amount of time. No doubt. It's just, can Jimmy G get them over the top when it comes time for him to win the game for his team? He's on that other side of the line, that line of demarcation where I say I'm excited about Patrick having the ball with a minute left, and I'm really worried about it if I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan and Jimmy G has the ball with the game on the line, that he has to go win it for the team. He's good, and he's a lot better than a lot of teams have at quarterback. And I got to think that Matt Rule and a couple other coaches are shaking their head that they didn't move to get Jimmy G when they had the chance. But there's a reason that they traded Trey Lance for what they did, to try and take their team to the next level, because they wanted to try and find one of those franchise type guys that has those upper level quarterback skills, or at least they could develop those quarterback skills into him. Whether Trey Lance is that guy is completely in the air, and would not be something I'd be willing to bet my or anybody I cared about life on, because he hasn't really showed us much, and he needs to get the experience to see if he can even be one of those guys. Jimmy G, the ceiling only goes so far, but the floor is raised insanely higher. And even with San Francisco being 3-4, I still think this is a NFC playoff team that I'm talking about, and one of the better teams in the NFC. So we'll see if that bears itself out over the upcoming weeks. But I see playmakers on both sides of the field, and it'll be interesting how the Rams attack them in their own building next week. Probably a lot of San Francisco fans, and we'll probably get more Christian McCaffrey because he wasn't able to get into the game as much as I would have liked, even though I like Jeff a lot. Christian looked like a good fit in the plays that he did play for San Francisco, and I still feel like I felt when the trade happened, that I think this is going to open things up and going to allow them to be more explosive from the backfield. But it's going to take a little time for him to get all the way immersed in the playbook, even though he did a good job to get as far as he did, it seems. The next game that I watched for a very specific reason, which was Tom Brady taking on and losing to the Carolina Panthers. I got to think that there were definitely some people in their elimination pools that got eliminated by this one after the Carolina Panthers came out kind of flat last week. But it seems after Christian McCaffrey was traded, this was their game where they show that it wasn't them, that it was the coach. And this is the "you don't believe in us" game, where you put in the extra effort on defense and you get everything done so that you can kind of show that it's not your fault that the team was losing, which is commendable for the Carolina Panthers, no doubt about it. They played really hard on both sides of the ball and slowly but surely wore the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down until they were nothing in this game. It was really weird to watch, but I had to watch just get a feel for why it's happening. Do I think it's going to continue happening? All those things. You have to watch those games to really know what happened. And it was an effort-based thing. It felt like Carolina wanted it a lot more. There are some things about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are different, that I think are leading to the different results for Tom Brady. First of all, the offense doesn't feel quite as creative as it used to. It felt like there was a lot more going on as far as the mix of plays. Feels like the mix of runs and passes are off. And then it doesn't feel like there's as many wide open plays as there was in the past. Now, I say that, and Mike Evans definitely dropped one of the most wide open plays of the day. So obviously it was working right then. But outside of that, it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on down the field, especially as much as there used to be. And I hate to feel like I always think it's the offensive line's credit or fault, but I feel like the big changes that they've made in the offensive line, not that they wanted to, but that got made for them with the retirement of Marpet and then losing the other guard and then losing your center to injury. It hasn't been their fault. It's just when you're bookending those guys with tackles that are good. Maybe Donovan Smith isn't great, but he's good. And then Wirfs is really good. And then the middle is mushy and people are getting through there and are able to get Tom Brady off of his mark. It's a big problem for your offense, especially a Tom Brady led offense that's not running the ball in the same way that it did before either. Part of their allure was that they could run or pass, and you didn't know which one was going to be which because they could do it from under center in a way that other teams really can't, with Tom Brady having all that experience and being able to work an offense, a passing offense from under center. Then you can give Leonard a lot of runway to get ramped up and be able to run it up the middle as well as the edges. And the middle isn't there at this point. So all of it's being put on Tom Brady in the short passing game. And then when you're not protecting as well as you have in years past and you aren't able to create that pocket for Tom Brady to sit in, and he's not as willing to take a hit as he used to be, then it creates shorter windows to make plays, and it creates shorter plays that are a possibility to make. And you take those explosive plays out off the Buccaneers, and you end up with these 3 points. I mean, Big Mike catches that ball, and we're already talking about a different game, letting the Bucs get ahead, letting them get more in control and more confident, but not in the cards today. And it was weird to watch. It felt like there was just something missing, that Tampa Bay didn't want to be there. Maybe like this was beneath them. I'm not sure what it was at all, but Carolina definitely wanted this. You could see it from the defensive effort and the way they were getting after Tom Brady. And then on the other side of the ball, they just slowly wore down the defense, running over and over again. PJ Walker did a decent job of creating a little extra time to get a couple deeper passing plays off. And in the end, it paid off. The Buccaneers ended up finally by the end giving up the big plays that the Panthers needed to put it away. And it just always felt like the Buccaneers had something a little off, whether it was a pass, whether it was getting a penalty or not making a block, and ended up losing to the Panthers. Now, whether they continue to fall from here or they get up and get their whatnot together could go either way by what this performance showed. There's a lot missing when it comes to Tampa Bay from what they were in previous years. And it's not just the offensive line, it's Rob Gronkowski too. I like Cade Otton a lot, but he's not Rob Gronkowski from a blocking standpoint. And Rob allows you to do a lot of different things when it comes to the way that you set up your formations and the personnel that you can have on there, because you can run or pass with him, no problem either way. And then Russell Gage and the backup wide receiver haven't been as good either. Antonio Brown, none of them are. Now, from a person standpoint, that's a good thing. But having Gronk, having Antonio Brown, having all these guys, putting them out in a route is what made them tough. And not having Julio Jones out there and having a bigger role for Russell Gage than probably what he's best at, that's where we're at right now. And that's where these problems are coming from. And I have a lot of questions after watching this game if they're going to figure them out. On the Carolina side, probably not great that you won a game, but tanking in the NFL is just not something that this game is set up for. You can't you can't half play a football play or a football game. You have to go full out, and sometimes things go weird and a team that's not as good wins a game, or a team that has been losing games over and over again is able to find their footing in that moment. The ball bounces funny, and these guys' livelihoods are on the line. Every play that they're out there is a snap that an opposing coach could watch for in free agency next year. They say, "Nah, this guy doesn't play hard," because they saw them make that play, or the opposite. They could like it a lot because they saw these plays. So you just can't do that in the NFL. But I do think the Panthers are going to be towards the bottom. It's going to be them. It's going to be the Texans. It's going to be the Lions. And there are two quarterbacks that are supposed to be within that range. And I think that all three of these teams need to find a guy. So should be a race to the bottom. So this goes a little bit against that, but still good win for them. And at least they got to show everybody that they had some heart here and that they're willing to fight. So good for them. Another game that I had to watch because I had to see why it happened and how it happened was the Green Bay Packers loss to the Washington Commanders. Another one that I didn't really expect, but when you watch the game, you can see why it happened overall. It was kind of a confluence of a couple of things. First, when the Packers are able to run and with able to stay within their offense and they're getting a lot of push up front, then they're really powerful on offense. And I really like Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon as a combo. Aaron Jones is still the most explosive part of the offense for the Green Bay Packers. And it seems like when they need an explosive play, it's pretty much Aaron Jones as the only guy that they can truly rely on in those moments at this time, which is the biggest problem by far for the Packers, is they just don't have reliable receivers that Aaron Rodgers can lean on at this point. Allen Lazard is fine and is doing well, but he's miscast as a dominant number one type guy in the same mold as Davante Adams. And nobody is probably Davante Adams at this point in the NFL. Okay, that's fine. But Allen Lazard isn't in that next tier or the next tier of guys as far as his ability to get open and create separation at this point. He's good at the point of catch and he makes tough catches, but he's not going to be one of those guys that you can work in every situation and have him dominate targets. And with that not being the case, there comes times when it has to be Dubs, it has to be Watson when he's healthy, or Tanyan, or somebody even lower down on the totem pole. And Aaron just hasn't been in sync with those guys. And I don't think that it's Aaron. I think that these guys just aren't quite on their marks and don't have the surest of hands either. And with the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing right now, with the precision that he's able to bring to the position, you would think that it wouldn't be as big a deal for Rodgers and for this offense. But when you're not able to rely on the passing game and have it be consistent as far as the catching and as far as the consistency, especially on third down, then you can't really rely on that as much as you would like to in the early downs. And when you're having to rely more on the running game and the like, then you get less opportunities to get the first down with the pass. And it means that you need to be really precise, especially on third down. You need to have a really solid third down game, and you need to be able to rely on your receivers. And Aaron Rodgers just hasn't had that through these first 7 weeks. And it shows, it's seeping out of his pores that he's unhappy with these guys and he doesn't trust them to this point. So, and it's affecting the Packers in a big way. And it's made the Packers more vulnerable, especially late in the game. And now you have Aaron Rodgers losing to Taylor Heineke, who is seemingly outplaying Aaron Rodgers. It's crazy because Aaron Rodgers is better than Taylor Heineke, but when they had to have it, Taylor Heineke may have pulled the plays out of his butt, but he made them and ended up getting his team the win. It wasn't pretty all the time, and I still think Taylor Heineke's probably ultimately a backup, but he's better than Carson Wentz, and he made plays when he had to today. Granted, picks, turnover, fine, but it was just really odd to not have Aaron Rodgers excel in those moments and to feel like the Packers have played themselves out of a bunch of these games. His problems don't look as physically dependent as Brady's do, but he also doesn't have the receivers to try and get over this. And maybe getting Bakhtiari gets them back in the fold here, but this game gave me some serious pause for the Packers, and really their lack of continuity in the passing game overall should worry Packers fans in the end, because unless some things change and some more chemistry develops here, this is going to be a problem going forward. This isn't going away anytime soon unless you make a big trade here, or all of a sudden these rookie wide receivers are become reliable on third down and the like, because otherwise this isn't happening. Like there's no way they're going to handle the Eagles or even the Cowboys in this state, it feels like. So I'll be watching Arod hard going after this game, because my trust was shaken a lot, which means that he'll go off for 50 points now, because that's how the football gods work. But still, this game was troubling. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was when I saw it. The final game that I watched was the Tennessee Titans victory over the Indianapolis Colts. I don't mean to gloss over the Tennessee Titans in this instance. Same old for them. The defense is a lot more solid than I thought going into the season, which I feel like is a mistake to underestimate Vrabel at this point when it comes to defense. But they are playing a lot better than I expected. And I don't think that the Indianapolis Colts line is as good as we've been used to it being in years past either, which plays right into the hands of the Tennessee Titans, who rushed the passer pretty well for a team that lost Harold Landry too. And I also think the offense is playing a little better than people expected without AJ Brown as well. Want to see how Tannehill practices and if he's going to be okay going forward. Malik Willis still has a long way to go as a passer, so I wouldn't want to shove him in there, even though I'd love to see how he looked in a regular season game. I don't think that he's ready for that at this point, and they'd be better served giving him some time. That being said, he's probably one of the better backups at this point. At least it'd be fun to watch him regardless. But still, the main reason I watched this was just to watch the last game, apparently, of the career or the Colts career of Matt Ryan, because the Colts went ahead and said that Sam Ehlinger, who hasn't really ever lit the world on fire from a film standpoint to me, is going to be the starter for the rest of their season, and they're taking Matthew out. Now, this could absolutely turn itself right around. Sam gets hurt and Matt's right back in there, I would think. But it's interesting to have a team say, hey, we're going to this young, unproven guy when you're just 7 weeks into the season, and they gave Carson Wentz so much more hook than what they're giving Matthew Ryan at this point. Seems like this is a Jim Irsay edict to go to the next guy or whatever. And this could be a last gasp for Frank Reich too, after having another quarterback reclamation project go wrong. But it's just shocking overall to see it happen until you watch the film, and then you're like, oh, this is why this happened. Matt Ryan definitely has been terrible overall. He makes plays for this offense, and who knows, Sam could get in there and show us exactly the same thing. So we don't know that it was necessarily Matt Ryan, but he looks pretty statuesque back there. It seems like he's lost enough of his juice as far as moving around that you can really tee off and go for him when it comes to the pass rush. It's not just the immobility either, although, like I said, huge part of it. He's lost some juice off the fastball too. The ball isn't getting to where he's expecting it to go as fast as it used to, and he's just making some really, really questionable decisions. Like one of those interceptions I just couldn't believe he threw it. I mean, there was two guys like within his shoulders, like they could have reached out and touched elbows. They were so close, and he went ahead and threw it. And of course, it's not just the picks; it's the fumbles. It's which, like I said, plays from the mobility. And then when you're not running the ball at an elite level, you're running it at like a good level, and you can't play off of that as much for him. That's a huge problem. And that's what we're seeing play itself out with Matty Ice here. It's sad because I thought that he could bring something to this offense and it might give him some extra life as far as his career goes. And it's not like they have extremely great weapons either. It's Michael Pittman and then a bunch of guys. Paris Campbell made a nice play, which I enjoyed immensely since I had to pick him up and play him in my dynasty league. But salary cap in a dynasty league, by the way, can be really tough with injuries, but I digress. He made a nice play. I like Mo Alley Cox and I like Jelani Woods just fine, but they're not upper level guys either. It's really Michael Pittman and a bunch of guys. So, and then of course Jonathan Taylor as well. So, what they were expecting exactly, I'm not sure, but more than what they're getting clearly because it wasn't great. And if he was making good decisions and they were tip balls, that'd be one thing. Or, if it was all fluky and it was all just a guy barely reaching out and tipping the ball away or whatever. But it's not just that. It's the plays that are on the margin too that he's not making that are making the Colts definitely reassess the situation here in a huge way. This is a big decision to make in week 7. Maybe it's a tanking situation. That'd be interesting, I guess. But as I said earlier in the episode, teams in the NFL don't tank. And it would seem to me that Frank Reich is kind of playing for his job at this point. Maybe not the case. I like him a lot as an offensive guy, but hasn't been a great era. And then it seems like your owner's telling that coach what to do to, I guess, keep his job at this point. So that can't bode well for the situation overall. The AFC South is a mess. Whoever wins that division, I mean, seems like you'll be able to flip a coin and have a better idea than what it looks like right now. But somebody's going to make the playoffs. My guess is the Tennessee Titans. But if you came in and told me Ryan Tannehill was really hurt, which I don't think he was, but still, then that would really be the ultimate. Well, anyway, that's what I've got for today. Appreciate your time. If you've gotten to this point and haven't done so, definitely throw a download. If you're not on YouTube, if you are on YouTube, throw me a like. That helps me get my message out to more people. And I truly and sincerely hope you enjoyed my thoughts about the games today. Look for more videos throughout the week. We've already got a nice Ken Walker video out there. He was showing off. That'll probably be one of the games that I watch because I want to know what's going on with the Los Angeles Chargers too. So Ken Walker will be a nice side byproduct of that. So look forward to more videos on YouTube and the like, and have a great rest of your day.